lot of people looked at what Apple Intelligence was and said, actually, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
They understand the logic that what Apple wants to do is make the things already on iOS better. That's based on the conversations I've had with investors. The thing is that they'd already accepted to a large extent, because it's priced into the stock, that it's not ready for the prime time. It's not like here. And so I do think that it's going to be interesting to get some very specific detail from the call on geographic rollout, generation of iPhone rollout. Mark Gurman has reported on all of this, right? The delay by a few weeks post iOS 18 generation software update. But that's what investors are looking at. They're trying to do the math on what prompts an individual to buy a new iPhone or up their subscription to Apple services, because how compelling that product is. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, we said, I'm going to buy a new phone. I know Paul Sweeney's going to buy a new phone. I know I look at the end of the year, all the money that goes out to Apple and all the various services and cloud storage and so on and so forth.
I hear the CFO taking notes right now, Carol. 2 new phones will be sold in the fourth quarter or third quarter of the year.
Now, it's kind of interesting, right? Exactly. And, I'm looking at our live blog, too. There isn't a single mention of the Vision Pro in Apple's earnings release. The $3,500 headset is Apple's first major new product in nearly a decade. There's not a ton left in the cupboard in terms of innovation, with the company canceling its self-driving car in February. That's coming from our Mark Gurman.
What's interesting is that there's a post from Ed Ludlow in the live blog. How did he do that? Well, he's here in our studio with us.
Yeah, I mean, the fingers move faster than the mouth sometimes, guys.
How are you thinking about, we've been talking with you throughout the week about the tech reporting season and the big mega cap tech companies that have reported. How are you thinking about them? I don't know that there's one trend line
There is a trend line excluding Apple, which is capital expenditures. And what's so interesting is, like, I was talking a bit about this in the blog earlier. Apple's capex is always low. A lot of investors always bemoaned its cash balance. It's so ginormous.
Right.
I look at the release and I see Apple's board of directors declares a cash dividend of 25 cents per share. There's one really important thing when you cover a stock like this. You need to remind yourself, how widely held is the stock around the world? Yes, there are many institutional investors that hold it in volume. One of them was on my show today, Denny Fish of Janus. Think of all the individuals that buy Apple stock because they think it's prestigious. I always find that fascinating. So a little divvy goes a long way.
It does go a long way. Hey, listen, we've been reading his comments along with Ed's on the blog. We read his story on Apple. Let's bring him in. Mark Gurman is Bloomberg News Chief Technology Correspondent. We call him our Apple guru, joining us right now, coming off of earnings. Mark, walk us through what you think the Bloomberg audience needs to know about this release.
Yeah, the through line here is that Apple beat across the board in every product category: iPhone, iPad, wearables, home and accessories, Mac, and services. So nice beats across the board there. Still, the iPhone, 1% year-over-year decline. Not terrible, especially given that we are going into the new iPhone season. The other thing to note, though, is Greater China. Greater China is down about 6%. This came in both below expectations and obviously is an annual decline. That's something that I think a lot of analysts and investors are going to want to take a look at. Why is China's performance continuing to decline? Apple does say, though, that they still see this as an improvement over the China situation in the first half of the year, but still this is not great. Looking ahead, we're going to want to know any color that Apple may have on its call about how they're thinking they're going to do in the current quarter, the fourth quarter. The new iPhone line, the 16, will go on sale towards the very end of Q4, towards the end of September. So that's going to be a significant moment, obviously contribute quite significantly to the bottom line in the current period, which obviously we're looking ahead at that. Another thing I want to call out is the iPad. The iPad grew 24%.
Wow.
Not entirely a surprise. I'm surprised that Wall Street estimated so low on the iPad. Let's not forget that Apple hadn't released a new version of the iPad for about a year and a half, and then released 2 major versions of the new iPad in May, along with major updates to their accessories. So no surprise there.